everyone, and welcome to Vlogmas Day 17. Today I'm making a trifold holiday card, and I'm going to be making it for my vet, so I'm using the mini cats and dogs stamp from Tim Holtz, and I'll be using my stitch circle dies from Simon Says Stamp. I'm starting off by running the largest of the circle dies through my Cuttlebug, and I'm going to be stamping using my Misty stamping tool. I'm going to be stamping using Memento Tuxedo Black ink since I'll be using Copic colors today. I don't want to stamp the tail because I don't want the image running off the edge, so I'm using a sticky note to mask off that part of the stamp. I'm going to close the door to the Misty and stamp on my image. However, the image didn't come out as bold as I wanted to, so I'm re-inking it and I will stamp that once more, and there we have our nicely stamped cat and dog. I'm now using my Copics, and I'll throw on some holiday music so you can enjoy the coloring process. And here's the finished piece. Now that the coloring is done, I'm adding on some glossy accents to both their eyes and the collar of the dog, and I'll set that aside to dry. I now have a panel cut to 6 inches by 7 inches, and I'm making a score at the 5-inch mark to make a 5 by 7 card, and this will be the second flap to the trifold card. For the top flap, I have a panel cut to 3 inches by 7 inches, and I'm scoring at 1 inch to make the flap 2 inches by 7 inches. I'm now using my Cuttlebug and running through the second largest stitched circle die to make a window in the second panel that will hide behind the cat and dog circle. I've now decided to add some glitter paper to my top panel, so I've cut a piece to 2 inches by 7 inches, and I'm adhering that on with my 3M Advanced Tape Runner. I've also decided that I want my second panel to be red, so I've cut a piece of red cardstock to 5 inches by 7 inches, and I'm lining up my two pieces so that the die cut window will line up perfectly in the same spot. I'm popping the die over the already cut hole, and I'm taking my micron marker and tracing the inside so I know where to place the die on the red cardstock. Once I have that trace, I'm lining up my die with the trace marks, and I'll run that through my Cuttlebug. I'll then add on some adhesive and adhere my red cardstock onto my panel. The red cardstock looked a little bland to me, so I'm using my Aged Mahogany Distressed ink, and I'm going around the edges to add some shading. Once that's done, here's my finished panel. It just adds a bit more dimension and texture to the piece. I'm bringing back out my Cuttlebug, and I'll be die cutting some little details from the Pines and Holly die set from Newton's Nook. I'm cutting out some berries from red cardstock and a bow from the gold cardstock. I'm adding on some shading to the little berries again with my Aged Mahogany Distress ink. It's now time to adhere the details on, and I'm going to be using my small Zotz glue dots. I had the holly leaves die cut from a previous project, and I used pine needle distress ink to give those some shading as well, in case you were wondering where those came from. I'm adding the glue dots to the front of the holly leaf since I'll be adding it to the back of the circle piece, and I'm lining up my pieces to where I want them, and then I'll press those down, adhering those into place. I've gone ahead and added on the bow and the other leaves, and I'm now adhering on my berries, and I'm using my multi-matte medium to adhere these on since the glue dots are a bit too big. I'm using my EK Success craft tweezers to help me adhere these into place since they're so small. Once everything's adhered on, I'm using my 3M advanced tape runner to adhere the whole piece onto the panel, but just remember to only add adhesive to half the panel since it will be hanging off the edge. To finish up the panel, I'm using a second circle die cut and adhering that onto the back to hide up all the markings and such. This is totally optional, but I think it gives it a much more cleaner finish in the end. It's now time to add the sentiment, so I'm lining up a plain white 5" by 7" cardstock panel behind the window panel, and I'm preparing it with my anti-static powder tool. I'm then inking up my sentiment with Versamark ink and lining that up in the center of the window. Once that's stamped in place, I'm sprinkling on some gold embossing powder by Ranger, and then I'll heat set that into place. Once that's all set, it's time to adhere everything together. I'm using my 3M advanced tape runner and generously adding on adhesive to the flap. I'll line up the two panels and adhere those together. I'll do the same thing to the other side, and I'm now adding on some Wink of Stella to the holly leaves and berries. I'm now taking another 5 by 7 piece of cardstock and adhering it to the back of the card to hide the flaps of the other panels. Again, this is totally optional, but I think it gives the card a more finished look and helps to hide how you actually made the card in the end. And with that, this card is finished. I hope you enjoyed Vlogmas Day 17 and that it gave you some inspiration. Don't forget to come back tomorrow for more festive crafting, and don't forget to subscribe so that you're notified when new videos go up. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you have a wonderful holiday, and I will see you guys next time.